Nikzad Oraee, I'm pronouncing that right, and I assume son of Kazem?
Yes.
Yes. So son of the previous speaker, Kazem Oraee, and the paper that he will be presenting is joint authorship with his father and with Arash Goodarzi, and again we're doing something in Iran here. Nikzad graduated in law from the City Law School, London in 2009. He then went on to complete his postgraduate studies in business management at Imperial College Business School in London. He is currently enrolled as a PhD student in the Centre for Environmental Policy, Imperial College London, researching on the global effects of law on business sustainability. And the title of his paper is Economic Analysis of the Copper Mining Industry of Iran.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your introduction. I would like to begin first and foremost by acknowledging my co-author, Mr. Arash Goodarzi, who has done quite a lot in writing this paper. Where, sir? This one? Yeah. Okay, excellent. Okay, as you can see, these are my co-authors. Now, I would like to begin this presentation with a brief introduction of Iran. Iran is a developing country with a transitional economy whose GDP as of 2009 was $331 billion. Now, the government is an important economic player in Iran, so much so that 80% of the GDP is attributed to governmental organization operations. Now, it is widely recognized and believed that public enterprises and large state-owned market players are no longer the most efficient and productive way of running an economy. Now, in 2005, the government was estimated to hold around $120 billion worth of assets within the economy. The same year, a program was launched by the parliament aiming to privatize 80% of those assets in a 10-year long period. Prima facie, this program has been successful because ever since 50% of these assets have been privatized. Iran, as you very well know, is in the Middle East. Is a country in the Middle East, and its main export is oil. However, the other big main sector is the copper production industry. So much so that 75% of the whole of the copper production in the Middle East is attributed to what Iran produces. Also, it should be noted here that a third of the Iranian economy is dependent on mining operations. Here I have a video of which shows the value chain of the production of copper rods in the National Iranian Copper Industries Company, which is the main company producing copper in Iran. Now, okay, now the video shows the production of copper rods prior to final distribution of the products. And it should be said that this company, namely the National Iranian Copper Industries Company, which henceforth we shall refer to as NICI Co., is by far the largest producer of copper rods in Iran and holds a near economic monopoly. Now, as for privatization, as we all know, the definition is the transfer of property owned by states to the private sector. It could be done partially, namely to merely transfer the control and management of state-owned companies to the private sector. Benefits of privatization are many, and I'm sure you all know. Some of them include productivity and increasing productivity and efficiency, for example, through increased market competition. Now, a brief history of privatization. In the UK, at least, it is much, the privatization of companies in the UK is much owing to the efforts of Mrs. Thatcher, who was elected in 1979 and who served for 3 terms as the British Prime Minister. Now, you can see all these examples here, but there's one which I particularly like, and that is the privatization of British Telecom, BT, in 1984. There, a law was basically passed through which they imposed a minimum price on BP, so that they were not allowed to charge less than a specific price for a minute per call. Now, going forward, according to the foundation of communism, all means of production are controlled by the government. And this obviously results in massive waste of resources, lack of labor incentives, and therefore unproductive workforce, which inevitably leads to inefficient economies. Now, the communist countries reduced a deadlock by the mid-1980s, which was led by massive, or let's say widespread economic mismanagement. Attempts, however, were made towards modernization of their economies through privatization. This, however, again, because of lack of good management, led to complete failure. The Gorbachev era was succeeded by mass corruption during privatization as they continued privatization from the Gorbachev era. Many Russian oligarchs became rich through privatization and took advantage of this possibility, while almost 20% of the population lived below the poverty line. Now, the title of the paper is to do with economic analysis, and let's go back to that. Economic analysis includes determining a system or a strategy to make use of our scarce resources in the best possible way. It is therefore obviously necessary for any potential investment to put in. Now, resources are limited, as we all know, and this holds for firms as well as for investors. Therefore, it is asserted that certainty, or let's say minimization of uncertainty, is a key requirement for potential investors. Economic analysis. Here we look at the opportunity cost of resources employed and measure the private and social costs and benefits to the economy derived from a specific potential project. For institutional shareholders, for example, firms, pension funds, profit maximization is often the most popular strategy, especially in the short term. Once again, it is to be noted that a third of the Iranian economy is dependent on the mining sector. Therefore, investing in the stock of mining companies in Iran is thought to be a lucrative option, and this also applies to the stock of NICI code. Here we assume that everybody seeks profit and a profitable investment, especially in the short term. And it is also known that investments, for example bonds, have different rankings according to the predicted profitability. Therefore, opportunity cost has to be considered in every investment opportunity that one is about to make. Now, in order to compare the financial trends of this company, the NICI code, we have looked at the financial statements of the company in order to predict and project the outcomes of the future. Here's the balance sheet, for example. Now, we will revert to the balance sheet in the next few slides. However, while we are here, it is interesting to note that the total assets, current and non-current, are near $2.3 billion for 2009. Now, this is the profit and loss account for this specific company. And it is also interesting here to note that the profits for 2009 were close to $630 million. Then in 2008, around 900 million. Now, and the average of these 3 years is close to $750 million. We should also note again that the key to a fruitful investment is good economic analysis, which includes cost estimation and sale analysis. Now, sale analysis. This is the breaking the total sale into smaller components so that we can increase our insight into what made and which products were the most popular and which brought the most revenue. In order to do so, we investigate the market and try to forecast the future sales according to past experience and market conditions. Sales analysis is crucial, obviously, in markets where competition prevails. For example, perfect competition, although that's very rare, and is relatively useless in monopoly markets. Now, the market for copper production in Iran is as I've said before, is a pure economic monopoly. Note that it's not a legal monopoly, it's economic monopoly. Therefore, there is no competitive pressure on the NICI code, and therefore, again, there is very little bargaining power on the side of the customers and consumers as against the company. This is the sale. This is a total of sales here.